I knew the instant the company was headed toward disaster. It was not when the servers hiccuped for the third time in 1 week, and it was not when management replaced our perfectly fine chairs with minimalist stools that had the ergonomic value of a milk crate. It was the moment Victor Hale walked through the glass doors of the sixth floor. Victor, the new chief technology officer, was 30 years old and walked with the swagger of a man who believed inspirational podcasts counted as leadership training. He wore a blazer so tight across the shoulders that one deep breath would have sent the seams into open revolt. The scent of cedar cologne drifted behind him like an overconfident cloud. Our engineering team glanced up from their screens, all sharing the same silent thought. This man was going to break something. My name is Lena Carter. I have spent 7 years at Nimbus Systems, which is the tech industry equivalent of surviving 3 decades at a normal job. I wrote half of the infrastructure that allows our clients to track inventory, manage orders, and avoid embarrassing headlines. My teammates call me the quiet fire extinguisher. I sit still most days, but when things ignite, I am the reason the smoke clears. Victor, however, did not see a veteran engineer when he looked at me. He saw a woman who wore oversized hoodies, drank gas station coffee, and preferred command lines over team bonding sessions. He made that clear in our first meeting. He marched to the front of the conference room and clapped his hands with the energy of a cruise ship host. The presentation behind him displayed a diagram so chaotic it resembled a meteorological forecast for a tornado outbreak. Arrows flew into circles. Boxes pointed at other boxes that pointed back at the first boxes. It was either a technology roadmap or a cry for help. Team, Victor announced. I have reviewed our architecture. It is ancient. It is monolithic. It is inefficient. We are moving to a modular intelligence grid by the end of the second quarter. I stared at the diagram. The very center of the slide highlighted the deprecation of a system he labeled obsolete core engine. My stomach tightened. He was referring to Phoenix Gate, the analytics engine I had built 5 years earlier during a logistical catastrophe involving a holiday rush, 2 broken servers, and a caffeine intake that should have resulted in hospitalization. That system prevented the company from collapsing back then. "Excuse me," I said, my voice slightly hoarse from disuse. "Removing that engine will shut down our entire compliance pipeline. Nothing will authenticate. Nothing will move." Victor turned, smiled with the ease of someone who had practiced the expression in a mirror, and scanned me from head to toe. "And you are?" "I am Lena," I replied, "and I built the engine you are calling obsolete." Victor chuckled. It was condescending and moist, like a laugh filtered through a damp sponge. "Lena, the industry moves forward. We are not preserving antiques here. Your code has sentimental value, I am sure, but it is time for innovation." The room fell silent. My teammates stared at their laptops, pretending not to witness the moment he stuck his thumb on a landmine. What Victor did not know was simple. Phoenix Gate was not company property. It was mine. Victor continued his presentation as if he had not just insulted the backbone of the entire company. He moved through slides that sparkled with buzzwords: predictive synergy, cloud-infused logic, scalable intelligence grid. Not a single meaningful sentence, but plenty of decorative arrows. It was like someone had fed a marketing brochure into a blender and poured the result into PowerPoint. I leaned back, expression unreadable, while my mind clicked through numbers and clauses like a silent machine. Phoenix Gate was licensed to Nimbus Systems. I had created my own company, Silver Loop Labs, years earlier, and Nimbus paid a quarterly fee to use the engine. The founder had understood my value. The founder had been a reasonable human being. Sadly, he had retired 6 months ago, leaving us with Victor, who treated the server racks like accessories to his ego. When the meeting ended, the engineers filed out quickly, avoiding eye contact. No one wanted to stand too close to me. They could sense the shift. When a company decides to remove the person who holds everything together, it affects the atmosphere like a pressure drop before a storm. Later that day, small inconveniences began to appear. My calendar invitations vanished. My access to the planning repository changed from edit to view only. Someone removed me from the data integrity channel. Typical tactics. Quiet erasure. A junior engineer named Cole stopped by my desk, fidgeting with the zipper of his jacket. He was talented but nervous, like a squirrel holding a lightning bolt. "Lena," he said in a hushed tone, "Victor is saying a whole system rewrite is coming. He said you are optional." "Optional," I repeated, nodding slowly. Interesting choice of word. I thanked him and watched him scurry away before Victor could arrive and mark him as guilty by association. At 7 that evening, long after most of the team left, I sat alone in the office. The floor lights hummed and the city skyline glowed through the tinted windows. I opened my personal laptop, not the company machine. My laptop connected directly to the Silver Loop Labs administrative server. It displayed a calm list of every Nimbus module dependent on Phoenix Gate. The list was long enough to require scrolling. Payment processing, vendor authentication, inventory validation, compliance routing, shipment forecasting, holiday surge mitigation, remove Phoenix Gate, and Nimbus systems would not operate at a fraction of its capacity. Victor did not know this because he never asked, and he never listened. My licensing agreement had a particularly important clause. If Nimbus attempted to alter, reverse engineer, or bypass Phoenix Gate, or if they failed to send the quarterly payment on time, I had the right to suspend service. No warnings required. The next payment was due in 3 days. I had a strong suspicion it would not be sent. Victor did not believe in honoring anything he did not create. I closed my laptop and exhaled slowly. Revenge is not rage. Rage is loud. Revenge is architecture. Revenge is an algorithm. And mine had just begun its execution. By Monday morning, the temperature in the office had changed from tense to volcanic. I arrived to find Victor already pacing near the server dashboards, waving his arms like a motivational speaker trapped inside a malfunctioning hologram. He spotted me immediately. "Lena," he called out with a sarcastic grin. I was wondering when our resident relic would arrive. "I see you are still clinging to that hoodie like it contains software secrets." "Good morning to you too, Victor," I replied calmly. "I did not expect you to be awake this early. I assumed you would be busy practicing leadership poses in the mirror." A few engineers nearby choked on their coffee. Victor squared his shoulders. "Cute," he snapped. "Truly adorable. Tell me, do you speak to all your superiors with this level of confidence, or do you reserve the attitude specifically for people who threaten your outdated comfort zone?" "Superior," I repeated. Interesting word choice for someone who cannot read a workflow diagram without using his finger as a guide. His jaw tightened. He stepped closer. "Lena, I understand that your generation of coders has difficulty adapting, but resisting company progress is not a heroic trait. It is sad." I leaned back in my chair. "Victor, your understanding of my generation is as deep as a puddle in summer. Besides, if this is what you call progress, then yes, I resist incompetence for the safety of everyone involved." He pointed at my monitor aggressively. "This system rewrite is happening. The company needs innovation, not your dusty tower of logic gates. So here is your choice. You can try to keep up, or you can get out of the way." "You want me out of the way, Victor?" I asked. "Then perhaps you should look into how the company actually runs. Because you may have the title, but I have the keys." He laughed sharply. "What keys?" "The system belongs to Nimbus. Everything you touched belongs to Nimbus. You are a tenant here, not an owner." Several engineers winced. "Tenant," I repeated slowly. That is one way to put it. But I assure you, Victor, the lease agreement is far more interesting than you think. He waved a dismissive hand. Spare me the riddles. Your time here is ending. Once the migration starts, there will be no need for your dinosaur code or your dinosaur skill set. If you say so. I turned back to my screen, refusing to let him see the faint smile forming at the corner of my mouth. He interpreted it as surrender. It was not. Later that afternoon, he struck again, loudly, aggressively, and with an audience. He marched into the engineering pit and announced, Lena, effective immediately, you are removed from the Architectural Oversight Board. We need forward thinkers, not hallway philosophers with dusty laptops. Someone muttered under their breath, This is going to be ugly. I stood, slowly. Victor, you do not have a forward-thinking team. You have a chaos parade led by someone who believes buzzwords are battle strategy. When this collapses, and it will, please remember that you insisted on being the architect of your own embarrassment. Victor smirked, but his eyes flickered. He could sense the shift. He just did not understand the source. Not yet. By Wednesday morning, the office felt like a pressure cooker powered by panic and bad decisions. A few engineers whispered among themselves as I walked in. Some gave sympathetic nods. Others avoided me entirely, as if proximity to logic might anger Victor again. He called a mandatory stand-up at 9. The entire floor gathered around the large screens. Victor stood in front with the posture of a man who believed confidence could replace competence. Team, Victor began, we are accelerating the system rewrite because the existing architecture refuses to cooperate. He shot me a look so pointed it deserved its own caution sign. Some legacy elements are resisting integration, and until these bottlenecks are removed, we need everyone fully committed to the new direction. I raised an eyebrow. Legacy elements, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Does that phrase translate to Lena ruined my plans by being correct again? The room broke into muffled laughs. Victor clenched his jaw. Lena, he replied sharply, you are a constant disruption. The company needs unity, not commentary from someone who is emotionally attached to obsolete software. Emotionally attached, I repeated. Victor, I am attached to functional systems, coherent logic, and uptime that does not resemble a dying light bulb. If you believe those values are obsolete, then you might consider a different line of work. He stepped closer, voice low but audible to everyone. You know what your problem is, Lena. You speak like you invented programming. Meanwhile, real innovators are outgrowing you. I tilted my head. Real innovators do not need to insult people to hide their fear, Victor. He bristled. I have no fear. You should, I replied. A ripple of whispers spread across the room. Victor scoffed loudly. Enough. Lena, your negativity is poisoning the team. Therefore, effective today, your access is restricted. You will no longer touch the staging environment, production environment, or anything related to high-level systems. You may assist with documentation until the transition completes. Documentation, I repeated with an amused snort. You want me to take notes while you dismantle a system you do not understand. That is adorable in a tragic way. Cole stepped forward nervously. Sir, maybe we should slow down the migration. Some of the modules are deeply interlinked, and if we... Victor cut him off. Cole, thank you for your concern, but I will not let Lena infect your perspective with her fear-based thinking. The rewrite proceeds. He turned back to me. And Lena, if you cannot support the new vision, you can leave, voluntarily or otherwise. I closed my laptop with a soft click. Victor, I said, I admire your confidence. It is impressive how loudly you declare your intentions without understanding the consequences. However, since you are determined to walk into quicksand with a smile, I will gladly step aside and let gravity educate you. His nostrils flared. Get out of my meeting. Gladly. I walked past him, and he muttered just loud enough for me to hear, "Relic." I stopped. I turned back with a calm, chilled expression. "Victor, you keep calling me a relic, but the only fossil here is your leadership style. It belongs in a museum exhibit titled Poor Decisions and the Men Who Made Them." Even several managers failed to hide their smirks. Victor did not speak again. He had no idea he had already ignited the fuse, because while he strutted around like a rooster on borrowed confidence, Nimbus had missed the quarterly licensing payment. Phoenix Gate had 48 hours before it executed Clause 6, and Victor had no idea what that even meant. Friday arrived with the kind of eerie calm that occurs right before a building loses structural integrity. I sat at my desk with a quiet cup of tea, watching notifications blink across my private laptop. The payment to Silver Loop Labs had not been sent. The grace period expired in 1 hour. Victor strutted across the floor like a rooster who believed feathers were a personality trait. He spotted me and smirked. "Lena," he said loudly, almost gleefully, "I am glad you showed up today. HR wants a word. Something about restructuring. You might want to bring a clean box for your desk." He tapped the cardboard edges of a box he was already carrying. "I even brought you one. Consider it a kindness from your superior." "Superior," I repeated, looking him over slowly. "Victor, the only thing you are superior at is embarrassing yourself in public. But thank you for the box. It will be excellent for storing your shattered expectations." Engineers choked. Someone actually whispered, "Oh no." Victor stepped forward, voice low with a hiss. "You really think you are untouchable? You really think this place falls apart without your dusty code? My new framework is nearly complete. Soon your precious Phoenix Gate will be a footnote that no one remembers." "Do you hear yourself, Victor?" I asked. "You sound like a man arguing with gravity." Before he could fire back, the building lights flickered. His smug expression twitched. Seconds later, a unified chime rang out across the entire floor. Every monitor shifted to a deep red notification screen. "License invalid. System access revoked. Contact administrator." A silence swept over the office so intense it felt heavy. Then the shouting began. Orders stalled. Payment pipelines froze. Shipment queues flatlined. The logistics dashboard pulsed with error codes cascading faster than engineers could read them. Cole spun toward me, eyes wide. "Lena, what is happening?" I remained seated, sipping my tea. "Phoenix Gate is enforcing contractual compliance." Victor stormed toward me. "What did you do?" I placed my mug down gently. "I did nothing. My company simply followed the agreement. Nimbus failed to pay the licensing fee. Nimbus attempted unauthorized modification. Clause 6 has activated." Victor slammed his hand on my desk. "Turn it back on, Lena, right now. This is your fault." "No, Victor," I said calmly. "This is the cost of arrogance." He lunged in closer. "I swear, if you do not fix this, I will—" I held up a hand. "You will what? Fire me again? Belittle me again? Call me obsolete while standing on the foundation I built? You removed the on-site administrator. You ended the support contract. You severed the very lifeline you needed." His face turned red. "Bring it back online, Lena." I stood slowly. My voice remained steady. "Victor, I am not part of Nimbus. I am a vendor. And your contract is dead." The CEO burst onto the floor, pale and sweating. "Lena," he said, "we need to resolve this. Now. We are losing money every second." Victor pointed at me like a child throwing blame. "She did this. She sabotaged us." I looked the CEO directly in the eyes. I enforced my agreements. And for the record, Phoenix Gate was never yours. It was leased. "We can negotiate," the CEO said desperately. "Name your terms." Victor sputtered. "You cannot let her dictate anything. She is unstable. She is—" I stepped closer to him. "Victor, Please stop speaking. You are revealing your fear too loudly. He froze. I turned back to the CEO. I want full compensation for all unpaid quarters. I want a mandatory buyout of Phoenix Gate at fair market value. And I want Victor removed from anything that involves electricity or decision-making. Victor screeched, "You cannot be serious." I smiled. Very serious. Consider it a stability upgrade. The CEO nodded slowly. Done. Victor stared at him in shock. You cannot fire me. I am the future of this company. No, Victor, I replied. You are the cautionary tale. The CEO escorted him away while he shouted insults that grew less coherent by the second. By evening, Nimbus cut the wire transfer. Phoenix Gate rebooted under perpetual licensing, and the company learned exactly how fragile brilliance becomes when arrogance kicks it in the knees. As I walked out with my box, Cole approached me. Lena, he said, awe in his voice. Was this your plan all along? No, I answered. Just my boundary. He laughed nervously. What will you do now? I shrugged. Something peaceful. Something profitable. Something far away from men who think buzzwords can replace logic. I stepped outside into the cool air. Nimbus Systems had learned a lesson that day. Never underestimate the quiet engineer. Especially the one who owns the keys.